Hello, you guys. Welcome to the Matt Time Podcast. I'm Nick Pomplin, joined by my co-host Brock Chittum. We are here to recap what was a very cursed UFC card, if I say so myself. It ended up being headlined by Michelle Waterson and Marina Rodriguez. It turned out to be pretty good, but we're also going to cover UFC 262 this coming weekend. We have Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the vacant UFC lightweight championship. Let's get right into it. So we're coming off the heels of probably one of the most cursed fight cards I have seen in quite some time, because unfortunately I was hoping to be here talking about Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw, one of the most anticipated fights of this entire year. And, you know, obviously Dillashaw coming off of that 2-year suspension, that was his fight back, but unfortunately he had a cut above his eye that had him withdraw from the fight. I think that was about like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
So that on top of many other things that have happened. Obviously, Diego Sanchez was supposed to fight Cowboy Cerrone, and we know the whole story behind that. We could talk about that for 2 hours if we wanted to, but overall, a lot of damage done to this card, and it ends up getting headlined by Michelle Waterson versus Marina Rodriguez. And, you know, for what it was, the fight card was pretty decent, I would say, because...
Yeah, it was good.
Because we lost about like 3 or 4 fights, and, you know, I'm glad the women got a chance to headline, but this definitely wasn't your ideal main event. And, you know, for what it was, I very much enjoyed it. I think the ladies put on a good fight.
Now, we also lost, very last minute, we lost Amanda Ribas versus Angela Hill.
Yes.
Which kind of bummed me out. I was really looking forward to that fight. After the Sandhagen-Dillashaw fight kind of got scratched and the Cowboy fight got changed, I was kind of like looking forward to the Angela Hill-Ribas fight.
Yeah, I'd honestly say that like I was looking forward to that fight the most out of any of them. Even like, I'm no offense to Cowboy, but, you know, it was weird with Cowboy because that was one of the few examples I've seen where the original opponent was easier than the replacement opponent, because I don't know about you, I think he would have walked right through Diego Sanchez.
Oh, he would have beat the dog shit out of Diego Sanchez.
Yeah, so I would want to get into that with Cowboy, because I think that's one of the bigger talking points of this card was, you know, he takes another loss, another knockout loss in the first round. You know, Cowboy's notorious for that, and something that people always seem to observe about him is whenever he gets hurt, it seems like it's very little chance that he comes back. He
kind of shuts off.
He shuts off. Yes, the Conor fight, the Pettis fight, the, you know, this fight, and many others. It seems like he takes that big shot, and it's just hard to get him back.
I agree.
So the question is, with all those losses in a row, and even because he had a draw against Nico Price prior, which got overturned to a no contest because of marijuana, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
Because Nico actually got a suspension, I believe.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And he got fined like $12,000.
What year is this? You know, where are we at? But anyway, that many losses in a row, and you know, people love Cowboy. He's one of the most beloved figures of this entire sport, so I guess it comes from a place of love. When does he call it quits?
You know, man, I was talking to people earlier about this, and I really think he goes down to 155. He has one more fight, and maybe it's time for him to retire.
Yeah, it'd probably be ideal for him to go back to 55 because, you know, at first when he went to 170 the first time, it was really good for him because
he looked good.
You know, he cut a lot of weight to go to 55. He still does, but he seemed regenerated. He seemed just alive, and all the things that make him good, it seemed like it was a better version of him, but eventually you run into some killers at 170 that cut down to get there, and that happens. But I would say I would want him to give one more try at 155.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like a title run. Just, you know, how does he look? Does he look good as he fights? Even if he loses, does he look good? Because last night he didn't look good. And some of his previous fights, he just looks like the bad version of Cowboy that we're used to seeing, unfortunately.
Now, for me, it's a tough spot because nobody wants to see Cowboy retire. He's such a great guy to watch fight, and he's just a character that everybody loves. But if say he continues fighting, it's probably going to be at 55, And in my opinion, I think he's ranked number 15 right now at 155. I think that changes. I think he shouldn't have any business fighting anyone in the top 10, maybe even top 15. He might just become like another fighter. If he wins his next fight at 155, I don't see him beating anybody in the top 10. I see him fighting unranked guys or kind of like new and up and coming guys if he doesn't retire.
Yeah, the other fight I wanted to cover the most out of all the fights with that, and the main event was what it was. Like Michelle Waterson, I love her to death, but I think it's been shown time and time again maybe she's not gonna ever get a title shot.
To me, I feel like where she's flawed is that she's way too comfortable walking straight backwards and putting her back against the cage and just getting fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like this Muay Thai girl she went against just charged her every round. They had their grappling exchanges and shit, but for the most part, she charged her down and ran after her every round. And all Michelle did was back up with minimal counter striking. And it works against some people, but you got to circle out. You got to stand your ground sometimes. And when you're just so used to running away, it's not going to fare well to the judges.
I think the thing I would observe about Michelle Waterson is, like, I think the only thing she's truly lethal with is her groundwork, which is funny to say. Like, she's a karate hottie. She's primarily a striker, but she's only shown finishes and, lethality in her submissions.
That's true, because she like upper body locks everybody, takes them down like kind of Greco style or like with like some sort of a judo throw or head and arm throw. And like Paige Van Zant, I think rear naked choke. Felice Herrig dominated her on the ground as well. A little bit of striking too, to be honest. I think, like, against all her major wins, like you said, it's with wrestling and jiu-jitsu, which is weird to think about.
So the thing I would say is I feel like either two things happen with most of her opponents. One, like what happened last night, this chick tracked her down, walked her straight down because she gave no respect to any kind of power that...
Yeah, just marched her down.
Or the second thing that happens, this has become almost a meme with Michelle Waterson, is she gets into like a 10-foot striking match with her opponent. Yeah. And, she literally was throwing... I forget who she was fighting. She was throwing strikes from at least 5 feet away.
Yeah.
Like, teep kicks and like jabs when she was that far away. So I think a lot of people have figured Michelle Waterson out, and we always talk about like having a back page lethal technique you can use. Like, she doesn't seem to have that.
Yeah, you have to be diverse and like you have to evolve. And it seems like a lot of people get in a point in their career where they predominantly, a lot of people don't care to learn, but it seems like in her case she just can't quite develop at a rate that will show success in any recent time. Like, I just feel like she's having a hard time evolving. But I don't think it's coming from a place of being stubborn like a lot of the older fighters. She's just kind of good at what she's good at and can't really evolve out of it.
Yeah, because we've seen Rose Namajunas evolve. It's
tremendously.
Like, it evolves past a form where you can even explain it to the layman. It's just... You have to see it to understand it, because it's more than just like picking up a new striking technique. It's just you're messing with a next level greatness there, where Michelle Waterson perhaps doesn't have that. But I also wanted to talk about Gregor Gillespie, because
100%.
I was so happy for him, man, because I can only imagine this is the first fight back since he got knocked out by Kevin Lee.
Brutal knockout.
That was in November of 2019. So you got to think, man, like, that's a life-changing knockout in of itself. And then a pandemic hits.
Yep.
And, I can imagine for him and many others, you don't know when that next fight's coming. When is the UFC going to pick up? And then he doesn't even fight that year. He doesn't fight in 2020 at all.
Yep.
And here we are, May of 2021, and he comes back, and it was against, Diego Ferreira is nobody to mess with.
He's pretty legit guy.
Always been there, always been in the top 15. But scramble fest, man. It just...
I was thinking the entire time through that first round, my heart would have stopped. Like, my heart would have exploded. These guys were going so fast. There's no way I could have kept up. Like, the conditioning is just unbelievable for both guys. Hats off to both guys. Hell of a fight they put on. But Gregor was able to get him in that second round, and he just got him tired. He got him more tired than he was.
Yeah, I can empathize with Ferreira there because I think that's a fight that Gregor probably thrives on, is
100%.
getting to do that with anybody. But that's the thing, is that Diego likes to get in jiu-jitsu exchanges, but good luck holding Gillespie down for any
Now,
period
what's
of time.
wild to me is we had the issue with Ferreira missing weight.
Yeah.
And he's probably coming into the octagon 10 more pounds, 15 more pounds heavier than Gregor Gillespie is. And I feel like it showed a little bit in the first round with exhaustion. Maybe Gregor just showed his exhaustion a little more than Diego Ferreira did. But Gregor weathered the storm. He got through it, stayed very professional. It's almost like he remained unfazed in that second round. He just kept going nonstop. And that's what won him the fight ultimately, is he didn't stop. You didn't even... Some guys you can kind of see when they feel like they're ready to break, or they just kind of check out of the fight. That neither one of those guys showed any signs of that. Once Diego got a little exhausted and Gregor got his back and actually flattened him out on his stomach, I don't care who you are, you could be fresh, you could be at 100%. When you get caught flat on your stomach like that, somebody's got hooks in, they're punching you in the fucking head, you're gonna have a really hard time getting out. It's not an ideal situation, even in the beginning of round 1, let alone round 2, when you guys have been going 110 miles an hour for, what, about 7 minutes, 8 minutes at that point?
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring this up, but you brought up Ferreira missing weight.
Yeah.
I have to bring this up now. So the whole thing with Ryan Benoit, who was supposed to be on this card.
Benoit.
Yeah, he pronounces Benoit. I know it's the same spelling as Benoit, but yeah, so Ryan Benoit, who fights at flyweight, I believe he did go back and forth between flyweight and bantamweight.
Yeah.
You saw the video of him.
He looked like he was going to die.
Oh, I hate to see that, man, because to anybody who didn't see it, basically, I've seen this a couple times where a fighter is just so in shambles from cutting so much weight, their body's like had enough. He could barely even... He could not take himself to the scale. He couldn't stand. He couldn't walk. They basically put this corpse of a man on the scale, and even just trying to stand there, you saw him shaking, teetering. So that fight was called off. So not even just on this podcast, but on MMA Twitter altogether, I saw the topic of weight cutting get brought back up because it needs to. I don't want to see this anymore. And I understand the argument of self-responsibility. He shouldn't have been so far off. And if he knew he couldn't make 25, he shouldn't have been putting his body through that 100%. At that stage. But there comes a point where we have to recognize what makes a fighter who they are mentally. It's because of how driven they are to complete a goal. And if we allow this to continue with the system we have, it's not going to be long before a UFC fighter dies, man.
And you've seen it. It's happened in Muay Thai. It's happened in wrestling. It's happened in boxing. It's happened in other MMA promotions, just not in the UFC yet. And I feel like once it happens in the UFC, then we're going to start seeing a change. But it's just unfortunate that it has to be that's going to change everything. Like, I believe with one championship, I think it was either their bantamweight champion, bantamweight or featherweight champion, died from cutting weight. And after that, I believe that's when they implemented the hydration test and things like that. I can kind of see flaws with the hydration test a little bit because you have to be at certain numbers and they can get a little finicky. But ultimately, I think that's the most effective way to go about things. And you can't say that they don't have the funding or capability to do that when they have USADA knocking on people's doors 3 times a week.
Yeah, former UFC fighter Cody Gibson had brought that up where that could like just straight plugged into USADA and it would work perfectly. I understand there would be like a adjustment period because think about it, you have champions at all these weights. Like, you know, you got Davison Figueiredo's the flyweight champ. Obviously, he cuts a lot, so he would have to move up. So you'd have to literally change all the weight divisions. But I just can't see why we can't do that, man. Because Joe Rogan has brought this up. It's like you say you cut weight for an advantage, but everybody does it. So you're not getting an advantage. We're all just killing ourselves for no reason. Yeah. For no reason. So if we implement it, I mean, it worked great for one, and they've been doing it for like 3 or 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. Ben Askren, when he was the welterweight champion in one, he fought at 185. And I thought you saw better versions of the fighters because I agree. Think about it. you spend, even without the physical diminishing things that happen when you're cutting weight, you spend less time in your fight camp cutting weight and actually get ready to fight.
Like, you can still focus on your diet, but you're not literally, like, a lot of times dudes are starving themselves, they're eating very low calorie, like, meals and things like that. But like you said, the diminishing qualities that come from cutting great amounts of weight, I don't think it's worth it. You see a lot of times when you cut large amounts of weight, you can tell who does and who doesn't, because sometimes their strength is compromised, mostly their cardio is compromised. When you have to cut big weight, it doesn't matter how good a shape you in, your cardio is somewhat compromised when you cut big weight. It fatigues you beyond belief, and that's before you even get in the cage.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't think there should be like any weight cutting, because
Yeah.
you and I have done weight cuts. Maybe you have done some that are like not too
A little
good for your
irresponsible,
health.
for
Yeah,
sure.
a little irresponsible, but there can certainly be responsible weight cutting that's healthy for you.
Definitely.
Small amounts of sweat and water.
Getting lean and in shape and like dropping a little bit of like fat mass is different than like, oh fuck, like when Masvidal had to lose 20 pounds in 6 or 7 days the first time he fought Usman. I'm sure he loses that over a fight camp, but that's just getting in shape.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure when he's actually, like, this last fight they just had, I'm sure he probably cut 10, 12, 13 pounds. He didn't cut 20, I promise you. That just comes with fight camp and getting in shape and getting lean.
I don't want to see that anymore, man.
I agree.
I think one time is too many, and we've seen it a handful of times with fighters.
Let alone that, I think they say, doctors claim it takes 24 to 48 hours for your brain to actually rehydrate, and you're gonna go get fucking kicked in the head, and you're still dehydrated, and it's terrible for brain damage.
And mind you, they took away the IVs about 4 years ago.
Exactly. So now you can't do IV drips and shit, which makes that problem even worse now.
Yeah,
because
so think
that
about
was
it,
the most effective way you could rehydrate. Now you can't at all.
Right. I don't want to see it anymore, and I'm hoping that what we're talking about, where something catastrophic has to happen, I hope it doesn't get to that point. I
agree.
Dana White can be smart enough to we got to make it stop, man. I think it could be implemented so much easier than people realize, and I know people have touched on other solutions such as adding weight classes. I mean,
right. I'm still down for that, but ultimately, what are they going to do? The only weight class I think they need to add is like change 170 to 175 and make a 165.
Have
so you're
every
altering
10
two
pounds,
weight
yeah.
classes. That way,
and I
you're
don't think
every
it
10
would water
pounds.
down the UFC too much. I think it'd be
No,
fine.
and
but
then honestly, there's some heavyweight guys that can't make 205 that are way undersized for heavyweight. They come in like 220, and that's them trying to put mass on because they can't cut to 205. There's a lot of situations like that where you see a guy that's 265, like Francis Ngannou, that's got to cut a little bit of weight because he's just a fucking giant, going against a guy like Stipe who weighs like 230, 240, where maybe if there was like a 215 or 220 weight class, he would be there, not at heavyweight. You might see little discrepancies like that that'll change people's careers.
Overall, like I said, I really appreciated that card for what it was, for how much it lost, but I'd seen a bunch of jokes on Twitter. It was like, that was the drawback from the MMA gods because of how good the last pay-per-view was, and having 3 good title fights in front of fans, so that we had to suffer a little bit to draw back from that. But I want to get right back into covering this coming up pay-per-view, UFC 262.
So before we touch that, I also need to add that fight with Diego Ferreira.
Yeah.
They got fight of the night, and because he missed weight, I believe they each get $50,000, right?
He didn't get the
fight of
bonus.
the night. He didn't get the bonus, so $100,000 went to Gillespie.
That's a hell of a way to come back, man. After all
so
that
he basically got an additional $100,000.
Good for him. Good for him.
Yeah.
So hopping right into UFC 262, the UFC lightweight championship. Obviously, we know the story of Khabib Nurmagomedov has retired, so we have the vacant championship. We were originally supposed to have Dustin Poirier most likely fighting for the belt, but he wants that fight with Conor. Very smart. But here we are. Charles Oliveira, definitely number 1 contender,
100%,
no matter who he's facing. But now we have former Bellator champ Michael Chandler, who busted into the UFC in spectacular fashion, knocking out a perennial contender in Dan Hooker within.
Nobody thought that was going to happen.
I didn't. I mean,
Nobody did.
I'm not saying I don't appreciate Michael Chandler. I've always thought he was one of the best. I'm not one of those to like, oh, he fought in the B League, but he struggled to keep his belt sometimes at Bellator. You know, he lost it to Will Brooks.
But that's where I feel like people disrespect fighters that go to Bellator or are already in Bellator. Most of the time, though, to be honest, it's just because people don't know their name.
Yeah.
Like, the Pitbull brothers are really fucking good. But you might never see them in the UFC, and that's unfortunate because people are never going to think that they're as good as they really are.
I mean, the one Pitbull brother that beat Michael Chandler
I believe Patricky.
Yeah, he makes an argument for being the best lightweight on the planet. He says that. He firmly believes that he's the best lightweight on the planet.
He might be top 5 if you're going like national or like world rankings as a whole. I would say he's top 5 for sure.
Yeah, so I'm happy for Michael Chandler because I never thought the day would come where he'd be in the UFC, and now here we are. It's like you blink and he's one knockout away, one fight away from being the UFC lightweight champion.
Well, I even believe a few years ago he was asked about it, and he kind of touched on it a little bit, but basically what it comes down to is all these guys that have been in Bellator, he's like, why would I leave? I get my own sponsorships. I'm getting paid out the ass. Why would I leave? But I feel like his time, he's one of the ones where he's been with the promotion so long, there's just not a whole lot left for him in that division. He's done everything there is to do. It was becoming one of those things where he's now having rematches and trilogies. It was time for him to move on, and I feel like he's at a point now, especially after beating Dan Hooker, where he's going to make a lot of money.
And he already is. I mean, that was one of the biggest talking points for Dustin Poirier was he wasn't happy the fact that Michael Chandler was getting paid more than him, and he's been in the UFC for well over a decade, right? I mean, and, you know, always puts on great performances. But obviously, Michael Chandler was worth the money, as we saw. And straight up, who do you think wins this fight?
I'm going to take Chandler. It's going to have to be by TKO. I'm going to say 3rd round. Oliveira's jiu-jitsu is fucking disgusting. I think what he did to Tony Ferguson was straight disrespectful. And I really respect the guy. I think he is one of the best in the world, but I think Chandler might just outstrike him. But it's going to have to catch him a little later on. He's going to have to figure out a way to beat Oliveira the same way he beat Dan Hooker, by throwing low to the body, coming over top, by switching stances, coming over top with the left hand. Because Oliveira, I believe, is like the same height as Dan Hooker. Very tall guys. And I think Chandler's like my height, like 5'9". So it puts him in it proves to me that he knows how to beat those tall guys, but it's just like Oliveira's so different.
I think it's one of those, like, I think this fight is so great because I think of infinite possibilities for
100%.
This fight. Because
that's what makes it like very exciting. I can tell you who I think's gonna win, but really in the back of my mind, like I don't know.
I'm flipping a coin with this.
Yeah,
I really don't
exactly.
know who to pick, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like, if I had to, like, gun to my head type deal, I'd go with Oliveira, but I really don't know because every time it seems like I think that Oliveira has met his match where he's not going to be able to grapple a guy. Tony Ferguson was an example.
I could not agree more. I was so blown away at the way he just handled Ferguson.
He made him look nothing. Like, honestly, because Oliveira fought at featherweight for.
He made him look like a blue belt, man.
He made him look. What he made him look like was somebody who weighs 50 pounds less than him. Yeah. It was crazy because Oliveira looks like a deceptively skinny guy, and he was getting like body locks and lifting Tony Ferguson off the floor like
big,
a little boy.
Yeah.
So I think of that when I think about I like my knee jerk reaction almost says I think that Oliveira's going to have trouble taking Chandler down. But then I think of that, so I really don't know. And
dude, Chandler is strong as fuck, though. He was training partners with Usman for a long time, so he was constantly training with literally the best welterweight in the world right now. They can both wrestle their ass off. I think Chandler's not going to have really any problems taking down Oliveira if he sees that as a game plan. If that's their game plan,
I highly doubt it.
I agree because I think that in my opinion, I think that his team believes that they have the advantage on the feet. I don't think that they're going to want to put Oliveira on his back. But if it gets to a point where, for whatever reason, Oliveira's outstriking Chandler, I'll see. I don't know how you feel about that. We'll get into that. If Oliveira is able to outstrike Chandler, does Chandler try to take him down and risk fighting Oliveira off of his back?
Yeah, it's one of those where, like, him being such a seasoned veteran, I think he will stick to a game plan, whatever it is. I don't know what it's going to be with this. And, you know, I guess my knee jerk reaction, if I had to guess who's going to win a striking match with this, like, I'm very impressed with the way Chandler went about fighting Dan Hooker and the way he switches from body to head. And it seems like he's.
And he was switching stances too, which is very deceptive for range. So, like, I believe he was throwing like a like double jab to the head and then a cross to the body. And then I think the knockout punch was like a double jab to the head. And when he switched stance, or when he dropped levels to throw the body shot again, Hooker reacted to that. But as he faked the body shot, he stepped through with the right leg. So he stepped in closer and came over top with the overhand left. So his range can be deceptive with that. Because he's constantly, he probably hit him with the double jab cross to the body. I mean, how many times, you know, like probably 7 or 8 times. And then he really got him reacting to it. Then he threw double jab, faked the body, stepped through, overhand left. Shit like that is what catches people. So when you don't expect it and things like that. Like Hooker, you can see it. Like, he fully expected that body shot one more time. And I feel like if he didn't get him like overreacting to it, that might have gone another way. Who knows? But that's all it takes is something like that. Get somebody in a rhythm and then expose it.
And I think the introduction of Michael Chandler to this division, I would say he's probably the hardest hitting puncher in the division. Like,
easily.
I can't think of anybody. Usually, like, this division has
maybe
been,
I don't want to be that guy, but like maybe McGregor.
Yeah, that's the only guy. I mean,
because Poirier hits fucking hard, but
sure,
he didn't knock Dan Hooker dead.
He fights in flurries where like he definitely has power and you could see that, but
100%.
It more wears on people rather than like sleeps them because, like you said, he fought Dan Hooker for 5 rounds. Poirier, that is,
beat the dog shit out of each other.
Beat the hell out of him. But Poirier was, Hooker was there the entire time.
Oh, he was in his face the whole time.
And then this short guy, this stocky
little
rocket
wrestler.
of a man, Michael Chandler, comes in. What was it, like a minute 20? So
yeah, if that.
And we've seen Oliveira put away a couple times in featherweight and in lightweight, so that's always there. I mean,
didn't Donald Cerrone beat him? Charles Oliveira.
It must have been back when
like,
he was
way
because like I said, Oliveira started at 55 in the UFC, and then went down to 45, and now he's back at 55.
I feel that's one of those things where he had to grow into 55, right?
Yeah, sure. And like you said, your pick ultimately is going with Michael Chandler.
Yes, but it's like, who really knows? You know, that's what I. Not only do I want Chandler to win, because I want people to see that he really is one of the best in the world, but I think that he's going to outstrike Oliveira, and he has enough grappling to kind of negate takedowns and things like that, so he's going to really make it his fight.
I guess if I had to pick ultimately with my mind, I'm going to go with Oliveira. Probably switch a couple times before the fight happens. But
I totally understand that, because it's a hard decision for me.
What I want to see is possibly seeing Michael Chandler win this one, and if Poirier wins against McGregor, I would love to see that matchup.
Well, they were trying to do that for the belt in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that would have been a shitty spot for Oliveira, because he honestly deserved a shot. Poirier deserved the shot. And Chandler, you can make an argument for him deserving the shot. But I can see why Poirier stepped back from the title shot. Win or lose, it would take him 2 or 3 title fights to make what he's going to make in this trilogy against McGregor. And I totally understand, and I respect his decision to run a trilogy. Win or lose, I don't think this is going to hurt Poirier's career. Win or lose. Like, he could get knocked the fuck out in 30 seconds. I don't think it really changes anybody's opinion of him.
Yeah,
now all that does is put McGregor in the title picture again, and now Poirier's back at like number 5, and he's just fighting his way back up. Maybe. I'm just really sad that we did not get to see Chandler and Khabib, just because they're both such good wrestlers. Maybe you can make an argument for Chandler being the best wrestler he would have gone against.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just one of those where that division is just so stacked. It's so fun. No matter what happens at this pay-per-view and whatever happens with McGregor and Poirier, we're left with a great matchup, so we have to be grateful for it. But the co-main of this pay-per-view, bro, the man we were just talking about, Tony Ferguson. He is fighting Beneil Dariush, and I think this is most likely going to take fight of the night, because the thing that makes me so excited for, not just the fact that Tony Ferguson's fighting. I know he hasn't been in the great form that we remember years past, but hopefully we can get just a shred of that, and versus a Beneil Dariush who has openly said that he is going to fight like a maniac.
Yeah, man, it makes me very excited for both of these guys. We already know Tony Ferguson he's kind of known to be a reckless fighter, but it's also worked a lot of the times for him. Like when he does these crazy spinning elbows and front flips and shit like that. Like I believe he cut Cowboy or Anthony Pettis. He cut somebody or gave somebody a black eye with like an elbow, doing like some crazy fucking flip. And shit like that just seems to work out. Same thing with Dariush. His fight with Drakkar Klose. Both of them were wobbled, and they both bit down on their mouthpieces, and they kind of had the mentality like, hey, fuck it, one of us is getting knocked out. Let's see who it is.
Yeah.
That makes for an exciting fight, but a short career.
It's funny because Beneil Dariush not too long ago it might have been off the heels of that Drakkar Klose fight. He was saying like, man, I need to start fighting more technically. But then I don't know what happened in between then and a little bit more recently.
It might just be the fact that he knows he's fighting Tony Ferguson, and you kind of have to fight
even
Tony
before
Ferguson
that,
like
though,
that.
Even before that, he had fought recently, and I think he had knocked a person out with a spinning back fist, and like he talked to it seemed like his mentality completely changed. It was really funny. But I think it does make sense to have that mentality going against Tony Ferguson. You have to match crazy with crazy, because it takes a special individual to beat Tony Ferguson.
I agree.
So this is going to be in Houston, Texas, at the Toyota Center. I believe something around probably the same run of people that we saw,
like a 20,000
people. Another UFC event with an audience. You just love to see it, bro. I think it just felt so right, that previous pay-per-view in Florida, having the crowd there for the knockouts and
yeah, all the cheering and the energy, things like that. I believe we talked about it last time. Like, how did we think it was going to fare out for fighters? Everybody seemed to do just fine with it. A lot of guys claim that they really liked the Apex. They actually enjoyed the silence. They enjoyed just two men in a cage. But, man, a lot of guys feed off of that shit. There's a lot of people that love hearing the crowd boo and cheer and everything. I mean, there's some fighters that like getting booed, honestly. Like, if they play like a bad guy, like a Colby Covington, they thrive off that shit, man.
Yeah, and I think a majority of the people that are on this card will thrive with the crowd, especially in the main event. But with this, I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning into the Mat Time Podcast. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know how you feel about the topics we discussed. And you can find our social media down in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in.